Hello, it's Midweek Extra. It's a special Midweek Extra. We are in association with NordVPN. More on them later. But we're going to cover the women's team in this international break because the WSL season starts on Sunday. Well, at the weekend. Liverpool play on Sunday and we're looking forward to it, or are we? We shall see. There's maybe a bit of trepidation as Liverpool have had an eventful summer. But to go through all of that, I've got Lauren Black, I've got Phillipa Smallwood, and I've got Beth Lindop. I'll start with you, Beth. Where are you with it at the moment? Because some players have left. Some maybe Liverpool would have wanted to move on, others maybe less so, but they've got decent money, of course, for Liv Smith, and managerial changes. Some players in, but they'd like a few more. How are you feeling about the chances at the moment?
Yeah, I'd say I'm more positive than I was maybe about a month ago when they didn't have a manager appointed. And listen, I think that has been a massive thing this summer. That there's been obviously hurdles to getting Gareth Taylor in. I think in an ideal world, Liverpool would have had him, at the beginning of the window, and then you can say to prospective targets, look, this is our manager, this is our plan, this is our vision. They haven't really been able to do that, and the Olivia Smith money obviously has been there for a little while now, but still, they've not come into the window knowing that that's the amount they were going to get. Liverpool didn't want to sell her, but ultimately, you understand from a financial perspective that, especially if the player was eager to move it, the hands were tied, really, I guess. So it's been a tough summer. You can't dress up too positively. I don't think there's too many Liverpool women's fans going into the season thinking, this is going to be an incredible season, and it's a shame when you look at where we were last summer. Obviously, coming off the back of a top 4 finish and being really positive about the season. But I think Gareth Taylor's a good appointment. I think he's a good manager. I think his Manchester City sides, albeit they didn't get over the line in the WSL in the title races, but I thought they played probably the best football in the league at times. Now, of course, that was with probably a greater calibre of player than he's got, with the greatest of respect to the players at Liverpool at the moment, but I think he's a good manager. They've still got some good players. I think keeping Kerry Holland and Fuka Nagano was really important, and they've still got some leaders in the team, and in the shape of the likes of Grace Fisk, Gemma Bonner. So there's still positives, but I think it's so difficult because now, you look at Chelsea, you look at Arsenal, you look at the money that's being spent, and you think, have Liverpool done enough this summer to get closer to compete into those teams? And I'd argue probably not.
Yeah, we'll hear from Gareth Taylor a little bit later in the show. I went and spoke to him this morning, so a little bit more on him. But they did finally get the man, Liverpool. It took a long time, and that obviously has knock-on effects. Transfer-wise, they've not been as busy as what we'd have liked, especially losing 2 key players like Olivia Smith and Taylor Hines. That they've been huge players for Liverpool last season, and in terms of the players coming in, yeah, they look like they're decent players from what I can sort of gather, but they were kind of additions you would expect anyway, not really signings you make when you've got £1 million in your back pocket.
Yeah, they're definitely more squad players rather than ones who you were obviously hoping to sign at the beginning of the window. Obviously, Olivia Smith's irreplaceable as a player. For Liverpool, she was basically our only outlet going forward last season. So she's going to be a huge miss. Same for Taylor Hines, obviously club captain, been in and around the club for 5 years now, so they're huge misses both on and off the field as well. So, yeah, I mean, obviously it's always great to add additions to the squad and have, bolster the squads wherever you can, but there hasn't really been kind of an impact signing that you could go. I'm really excited for them to kind of come in and just see what they can do. I think there's definitely more room to improve for us, but that's obviously looking probably more in the January window that's going to happen rather than now.
You've been watching them in pre-season. You've even scouted Everton a little bit. We'll do that in part 5. Where are your optimism levels at the moment, Phillipa? Be honest.
Yeah, I'm fearful, to be quite frank. I really do think that we're going to struggle this season. Certainly in the first half, like Lauren, I think we may do something in January to kind of pick up for the second half of the season, but it's a real concern for me. I feel like we've lost some really key players, like you just mentioned there, but we've not really replaced them adequately for me. And there's no real excitement there. I feel particularly up top, we're really, really short of players, and I think that's something that we struggled with even last season with Liv Smith. It was all on her shoulders really, and we've not really done anything at all in the forward positions, and it's a real concern for me. Even Sophie Roman-Hogg, she missed a huge part of last season. She's not really been in pre-season training yet. I think she started maybe this week. So it's a real worry for me. I don't feel like we've got any sort of focal point up front. So I just don't see where the goals are going to come from. And I think it's going to be a real grind for the first half of the season.
Yeah, the year we went down, it was up top that was the real problem. I remember watching them and thinking, well, some of the players decent, and they were just losing games 1-0 because, you know, it'd either be like maybe a mistake at the back or something, but it didn't seem to be sticking up there. And so we've seen in the past that if you haven't got goals or you haven't got someone who can hold the ball up, you know, and get other people into play, like, it's tough for you. You're playing almost with one hand behind your back.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's really important that we've kept hold of Fuka Nagano and Kerry Holland. And I think in pre-season we've been mainly playing Kerry Holland on the right of the front three, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, but for me she's her main strengths are in midfield.
Yeah,
and,
she's an engine, yeah.
You know, we're having to kind of put her there just so we've got a body in there, and, you know, that for me is really quite concerning. I mean, I'm hoping that, you know, my fears are allayed and, you know, come the weekend we managed to beat Everton for the first time at Anfield, but I just can't see it at the minute.
There was a few players last season, Beth, who came in last summer, and I'm not quite sure ever Matt really knew sort of what to do with them, really. And you hope with a new manager coming in, you know, he's maybe able to look at a couple. You know, he's only been in it sort of a few weeks, but sometimes when a new manager comes in, he can revitalise what's already there. And I think some of those attacking players who kind of fell between, are they midfield or are they sort of a forward, but have obviously got a little talent, that there might be an opportunity for them to suddenly look like new signings.
Yeah, and I think, you know, having, you know, Matt Beard has done wonderful things for Liverpool over the years, but I think in a sense it probably was the right time for a change and for a fresh perspective, and I don't think that's any bad thing, and I do actually rate, as I say, I rate Gareth Taylor highly, and I think he will maybe be able to unlock things in some of the players that wasn't there last season. And it also, when a new manager comes in, you know, players have to prove themselves all over again, and you know, for some of these players playing for Matt Beard for a number of years, I'm not saying that they weren't trying or they weren't putting effort in, because they absolutely were, but you know, that whole thing of having to sort of fight for your place and show something of yourself, it intensifies when a new manager comes in. So you would like to think that is a positive thing. And I caught a few bits of the draw with United a couple of weeks ago, and there were some really positive moments in that. I thought in terms of the way that Liverpool played, you know, it was clear that Gareth Taylor had been able to implement a few things already, and it's still early days. So I think that is a positive. I think it's just I think ultimately you want a big, exciting signing you can get behind going into a new season. You know, Olivia Smith was obviously that last summer, and I think, you know, in terms of getting bums on seats, in terms of, you know, galvanising the team as a whole and making a real statement, and they've not done that. But they do still have quality within the squad, and if the manager can start getting a tune out of players that maybe haven't quite shown the best yet, then, you know, hopefully they'll get to January and can invest some of that Olivia Smith money into bring in one or two real statement signings in.
I sort of suspected the manager wouldn't have come if there wasn't a plan he could sort of get behind. You know, he'd obviously, you know, he'd left Man City under a little bit of clouds. So you might say, well, he didn't have loads of offers, you know, perhaps, but still, I think, you know, he could have stayed out the game a little bit longer, and he could have gone over to the continent. And sure, maybe in America, that's what Matt Beard did. So the fact that he's come to Liverpool, you know, with, you know, the skills that he has and things like that, makes me think, well they've sold him something.
Yeah, definitely. It's obviously it's obviously promising for the years to come that you've got a manager who's obviously worked in the WSL and worked at a high standard at Manchester City, that he's able to come in and kind of make his mark on this team. But then it's obviously going to be difficult for him because a lot of these signings, a lot of these players aren't his players yet. Yeah. So I think it is definitely going to be a transitional period, particularly for the first half of the season, like Phillipa said before, where we're probably going to see, you know, those few awful moments, but it's going to hopefully become better once he kind of gets his foot through the door and, you know, can put his stamp on the team that he's got now and potentially further signings later on.
Where do you think the strengths are in the squad at the moment? We talked about worrying about goals, but where do you think well, actually there's something there for the manager to work with?
I think the midfield's pretty strong, to be quite honest. You know, we got Sam Kerr in last January on loan, and I was pretty impressed with her, to be honest, in the second half of the season. And then obviously we've signed her permanently now. I think she's a strong signing. Herbinger's, for me, has always been pretty strong. And then, like I say, you've got your Kerry Holland and your Fuka Nagano. I think that's really strong four there that we've got in the midfield. If Sophie Lungau can get back to her best after a bad injury. And then we've obviously added Kirsty McLean as well, who I believe is a decent player. You know, I've not seen enough of her to
well, she's coming up later as well. Apparently they call it Annie after Iniesta. That's
okay.
what the teammates.
So ringing endorsement.
It's not bad, is it? If you're going to be compared to a player, yeah, it's not bad at all. So that's her nickname in the Liverpool dressing room. So there you go.
Yeah, I just think the midfield's pretty strong. You know, and defensively, even I think we've got some really good players in defence. I don't think we'll necessarily have a problem being solid in games. I mean, pre-season worries me a little bit, but you know, I think we're a pretty solid side. It's just having that creativity, and you know, like Beth says, you know, Gareth Taylor, you know, he plays pretty attacking football. So you know, maybe I just need to see it with my own eyes, you know, in the flesh, and you know, get a real feel for what his plan is, and you know how they're gonna set up. But yeah, trying not to be too negative, but yeah, it is a worry for me this season, I have to say.
Yeah, you don't want to be sort of too negative, really, Beth, but when you lose your best player, when you lose your captain, and the replacements haven't been as quick as probably what they like either, it's natural to worry, and everyone else is getting stronger as well, and there's teams coming up who are spending a lot of money. You look at the players who are going to London, and they've almost signed 2 teams, and it has been really impressive. You know, other teams who maybe have been behind Liverpool look like they've caught up, and I think that's where Liverpool need to be careful, is that you know, you can't stand still, because if you stand still, you end up behind because other people are moving forward.
Yeah, and listen, that the owners and the hierarchy got a lot of criticism a few years ago, because obviously the same year that Liverpool won the Premier League under Jurgen Klopp, the women's team were relegated, and that should never have happened, should never have been allowed to happen. For a club like Liverpool, who'd won 2 WSL titles back to back, you know, they shouldn't have been in a position where, you know, they weren't playing in the WSL, and the fact that they were, it is frustrating. It is really disappointing from the club's perspective. Equally, there was a really positive spell, I think, a couple of years ago, you know, where it really felt like the club were making a concerted effort to make amends for that. They obviously brought back Smallwood, which, you know, if anyone has been there, it's such a great facility. It really, really is. It's one of the best in the WSL. And it felt like that was a real statement to say, you know, we really care about the women's team and we're determined to build them up. And that was reflected on the pitch in them securing that top 4 finish. And then obviously last summer going and breaking the transfer record to sign Olivia Smith. So it felt like there had been a sustained spell of progress, and it almost feels like over the past year they've stagnated a little bit, which is frustrating, and in some ways, you know, it can't be helped. I think there were times last season, games that Liverpool were winning, and you know, I think they could have easily got more points than they did, and they just didn't control some games very well at all, and they dropped points sort of needlessly, and it sort of meant by the time they got to Christmas, they were already out of contention for finishing in the top 4. So it is tough, and the tough thing in the women's game is, you know, we're saying top 4 there, you only actually get rewarded for finishing in the top 3 in the women's game, and even then, if you finish 3rd, you've got to play in qualifier and same in 2nd. So there's only very limited spaces for teams to receive a tangible reward, and the number of clubs who are aiming to get into those 3 places is increasing year on year. You know, you mentioned London City Lionesses, the amount of money that they have spent this summer. They're now, you know, they won't be coming just to make up the numbers. Yeah. They'll want to really make a statement and try and climb up the table. So competition is getting more intense every season, and Liverpool don't want to be in a position where, you know, they're facing another relegation scrap, because when you look at the money that's been spent on the men's side this summer, you know, what an exciting time it is to support the men's team. It'd be really, really disappointing if the women's team were allowed to fall by the wayside again.
Well, listen, coming up, we're going to talk about what we'd like to see from Liverpool next year. And obviously, we'll preview the big game on Sunday. Tickets are available for that. I'm going to keep saying that. If you want to get down to Anfield to support the Women on Sunday, you can do. It's a midday kick-off. Tickets are available through the club website. But let's hear from Emma Sanders. We like Emma. Here she is. And we are now joined by BBC Sports Emma Sanders, WSL expert, of course, and our mate, equally importantly. Emma, first of all, thanks for coming on, which I'm sure it's a busy week for you. Are you looking forward to this upcoming WSL season?
Yeah, I can't wait. Like you say, it's a busy week. I think it's going to be another busy season, certainly from my perspective, off the back of obviously England winning the Euros. I think it's going to be another big year for the WSL. You know, how can they capitalise on that international success? We saw the impact it had in 2022, so I'm excited to see what happens there. And also just the quality that's come into the league yet again. It's just bigger and better each year, and I think, you know, it's not going to be any different this time around. I also think the title race could be a bit closer this time than it probably was last year. So yeah, exciting times, busy year ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the players coming in, that's right throughout the league, which is what I've noticed. I mean, the teams at the top, at the very top, who we expected to, like you say, be challenging for the league title, have obviously brought in, you know, some big players. But even down to London City, who've come up, they've signed an army, really, isn't it? And players, you know, people like Nikita Paris is obviously a scout here, Katie Zellum, who used to play for Liverpool, and loads more besides. So it looks like they're going to have a real go. So it's going to be a tough league for everyone this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think London City are the team that everyone's looking at. Really, really intriguing sort of prospects there. Obviously, under the ownership of Michelle Kang, who's the wealthy American businesswoman. She already owns Washington Spirit in the States and Lyon, the 8-time Women's Champions League winners. So, you know, she knows how to run a successful business first and foremost, and she knows how to run a successful women's team. And I think that's really important. So I think everyone's intrigued to see how they get on. Like you say, they've held no barrels back in the transfer window, and some of the players that they've signed, I mean, they're absolutely Champions League quality. Daniela van der Donk coming in from Lyon, former Arsenal midfielder, a top quality Netherlands international. So yeah, I think if I was the likes of Manchester United, Manchester City, I'd be looking over my shoulders and worrying about further competition for those Champions League spots. And obviously you would think Arsenal and Chelsea are going to be battling it out for the title, but again, Manchester City without Champions League football will be looking at that and thinking, okay, we've got some time on our hands. Can we, you know, exploit that and look to get, you know, in amongst that title race this season? So that top sort of 5, I think, is going to be really big. And then, you know, you look at Brighton and the way that they've invested in their squad over the last 2 years, I think they're pretty serious as well. So, yeah, lots of exciting investment going on throughout the league, and I'm sure we'll come on to it, but Everton, one of those as well.
Yeah, we'll talk a bit about Everton right at the end, but, you know, from a Liverpool point of view, probably not as much investment right now than what we'd like, especially with some big players going. There's obviously some players who've been around for a while who've left the club, but Taylor Hines and Olivia Smith going to Arsenal is a real blow, because they were, you know, I was going to say 2 of Liverpool's best players. They were maybe the top 2 last year. So that's a real blow, and they'll take, you know, some replacing in terms of their output on the pitch.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if we start with the positives, I think it was a big thing that Liverpool were able to keep the likes of Kerry Holland and Fuka Nagano this summer. I think that was really important. So that's a big tick, because, you know, I think if Liverpool had lost those 2 players, then they would have been in serious trouble. Olivia Smith, realistically, was always likely to move on. Liverpool, you know, picked a lot of clubs to her signature last season, managed to get ahead of Arsenal and brought her in for what was then a club record fee of 250k at the time. They've now made a profit on that. You know, she's gone for £1 million. They've had a season out of her, and they've got 4 times the amount of money for her. So I suppose when you look at it in that terms, they've actually done pretty well, because, you know, like I say, she was more likely to go to a club like Arsenal last season anyway, and Liverpool pulled out all the stops. So yeah, that is obviously a huge blow. She's a fantastic player, but I think the money that Liverpool have got out of that, I think, will actually help them more in the long term. Taylor Hines is a blow, because, you know, she's been a consistent player in that Liverpool team. I think the fullback areas is an area that Liverpool have wanted to strengthen anyway in the last few windows. So there's no argument there that actually her departure will accelerate that. But, there's definitely concern, and there should be, because it took too long for them to find a replacement for Matt Beard. We left in February the manager. They brought in Gareth Taylor, who's got, a strong CV, strong pedigree behind him, but it took far too long to get him in because of contractual reasons at Manchester City that sort of, stopped him joining another WSL club within a 6-month period. So Liverpool had to really sort of bargain and negotiate to get him over the line this summer. And as a result, it just means that their recruitment's fallen massively behind. They've hired a new head of recruitment for the women's team, which is another good move, but it came in, again, really, really late. So, I spoke to Gareth Taylor a few weeks ago. He was pretty open, actually, quite honest, that it's going to be a struggle, I think, certainly for the first part of the season, trying to get the players up to scratch quickly in a short period of time. And he's well aware that, the club haven't got the players that they needed really to get in this window. So it could be a case of Liverpool might have to dig in a little bit, get to January, and then when they get to January, they've got a huge pot of money from the Olivia Smith sale that will be coming in instalments from Arsenal. But for a club like Liverpool, the instalments, that they'll be getting will be more than enough to be able to bring in some players. So hopefully, the clubs sort of back that up and they go out and spend big in January, because I think Liverpool will need to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're recording this on Tuesday. The transfer window for the women closes on Thursday, which is the day this is out. So, between now and then, there might have been a couple of players sort of come in. And I spoke to Gareth Taylor today, and people will hear that later in this. But they are sort of still trying, but it is only sort of a couple of days. And you think most of the squad, certainly the vast majority of the squad, will be what we've got now. And it's whether that's enough, really, because Liverpool slipped down the table last year. It wasn't massively unexpected, because I think we all agreed that they overperformed the other year before, came fourth, and listen, you were talking about a top 5 battle before, and Liverpool weren't even sort of in the mix. And so that's where they are. But, I mean, might they get dragged into something, because we can't rely on the team coming up being cannon fodder. We've said that already. There's teams like Brighton who are improving, and so there'll be a few down there who maybe thought that they were, safe for a while in the Super League. You might be suddenly looking a bit worried, not just Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, one of the good things, one of the positives, is that this season is the first season where they're bringing in this playoff game. Now that's to get the expansion of the WSL from the season after. So that means that whoever finishes bottom of the WSL for the first time isn't automatically relegated. They will play a playoff with the third place team in the second tier. So, you look at the likes of Leicester, West Ham, Liverpool, Everton have been in that bottom half in the last couple of seasons, although they will want to be in the top half this season given how much they've spent in the window. But certainly those clubs, Aston Villa as well, will be looking at that sort of playoff game and thinking maybe because there isn't the automatic threat of relegation, they have a little bit more time to play with in terms of trying to build a squad a bit more sustainably. And, that's a word that keeps getting bandied around by clubs. Some fans might look at that, pessimistically and say, well, that's a bit of an excuse to not spend money. I suppose, the other flip side opinion is actually it's a sensible way to build a squad over a period of time. I think I'm more leaning towards the pessimistic side of that opinion, where I think, the game is growing so much and the money that's coming in is pretty much doubling in every window, that if you're trying to stay within that market, you're just going to get left behind. You sort of have to grow and add more as the market grows, if that makes sense. So I think those clubs will be concerned. I think they'll be looking at how they can bring money in, because they need to bring money in order to spend it. And I think that's where I go back to Liverpool on Olivia Smith. They held out for a long period and they kind of had their price, and they basically said she wasn't going for anything less than $1 million. The offer came in, and for a club like Liverpool, who have always operated on a sustainable model, just like what they do with FSG on the men's side, I think that was their way to be able to look at the next 2 to 3 windows and think, okay, that's money that we can use over a period of time and in a more sustainable manner.
Do you think there's any players from a Liverpool point of view who they might be able to get a bit more out of? Because obviously players leaving is an opportunity for those that are there, and there was a few players who came in last summer who I kind of felt we never really saw the best of, certainly from an attacking point of view. Do you think there might be 1 or 2 of those who might surprise a few people this year?
Well, Sophie Longard's been a player that I've been sort of waiting to kind of explode on the scene for Liverpool. I think she's obviously had her injuries, which has held her back a little bit. But I think when she has played a bit more consistently over a period of time, I think you can see that there's a real player there. I think, particularly under the style of football that Gareth Taylor will try to implement, I'm really excited to see what she can do in this Liverpool team, actually. So I think she's someone that I'm looking at. I think Hannah Silcock is another really, really exciting player for Liverpool. Obviously, come through the academy, fantastic centre back, ball playing centre back again, playing towards Gareth Taylor's style of football. I think it'll be exciting to see what she can do.
Sunday then, midday kickoff. Some of us are sleeping in the Cop the night before, so wondering whether to bother going home or not. I think I will for an hour or two, but what are you expecting? You know, you talk about Everton strengthening there. They've got a good record at Goodison Park. Can Liverpool reverse that on Sunday, do you think, or do you think it'll be tough?
I think it's going to be really, really tough. I think, the good thing, I suppose, for Liverpool is that, it's not often that a Liverpool team playing at Anfield would be considered underdogs against an Everton team, right? I think that's been fair across the board. Even when Everton have been in good form in the women's game and they've come to play Liverpool at Anfield, you would still expect the pressure to kind of be on Liverpool. But I think all eyes are going to be on Everton for this opening game, given how much they've spent in the window, the fact that they're under new ownership, the Freakin Group, and since they came in January, they really have gone all out on the women's team. So in a way, that will put pressure on them. It means that people are going to be assessing them. Are they good enough to kind of, get in that top half of the table? Have they showed signs that they're progressing? All these questions. And I think, obviously, Liverpool are going to be behind in terms of, where they want to be. Gareth Taylor's had a couple of tricky pre-season friendlies to navigate. Obviously, as we've discussed, very late action in the transfer window in terms of what they've been able to do. So I think it is going to be really, really tough. I would expect Everton to come to Anfield and want to play and dominate possession. And I think, Gareth Taylor's got to be a bit savvy because he's used to being in charge of teams that do that, that control the possession, control the game. I think he has to play towards a Liverpool way where it's not as familiar for either our men's or our women's team, especially not at Anfield. I don't think they're going to be able to control that game. So I think it's going to be quite a tough watch maybe at times for Liverpool fans. But I think if they want to get something out of it, then they've got to be quite savvy and a bit more physical.
Gemma Bonner header from a corner to win it at the Cop. That'll do us. Emma, anything else to look out for before we let you go? Bearing in mind this is coming out on Thursday.
Yeah, well, I think we've seen some big news this week that there's going to be minimum salaries introduced in the WSL and the WSL2 from this season, which I think is really significant news. It's the first time that's happened in the women's game, so that's I think the first big example we've seen of kind of the takeover company capitalising on that Euro success. How can we really accelerate the professionalism of the women's game in England? And I think paying players across two tiers absolute full-time wages that means they can concentrate on football and not have to worry about the financial side, I think is really significant. So hopefully that will improve the quality of the football going forward.
Yeah, huge in the WSL2 in particular, that one. So good to see, like you say. Emma, I'll see you soon. Might see you on Sunday.
See you on Sunday. Enjoy your kick in the Cop.
Thanks a lot to Emma. Before we get into what we'd like to see, I just want to give a huge shout out to NordVPN, who are partnered with us for Midweek Extra for this one. It's a fantastic service that I use now on all my devices, and I can do that with just one membership. There's loads of benefits to a service like NordVPN and its extra internet security, which is really important when you're a high-flying businessman like me. You're out and about in all these different locations all around the world, logging into public Wi-Fi's and things like that. Just having that extra internet security really gives you peace of mind. But I think the main reason why a lot of you guys are enjoying the VPN service and people get in touch with me all the time to say you are doing so is that ability to change your virtual location. So there might be something that is not possible to watch in this country, even if it's being played here, sometimes with certain games. But if you change your virtual location, then you're able to maybe access that. So that is something that people use a lot. It's something that I used last Saturday afternoon and had a good laugh at Man United for a while and then got disappointed, which was a little bit of a shame. But there you are. So nordvpn.com/TAW if you want to get yourself a fantastic offer. nordvpn.com/TAW to get yourself over there. Thanks a lot to Nord. So Lauren, what do you want to see from Liverpool Women next year? It can be as broad or as focused as you want.
I think, Joe, I just want to see some good football.
Yeah.
I think that's what we've missed over the last, well, especially last season. It's just some good football. I want to see them actually look like they enjoy themselves sometimes on the pitch. I think they come into games sometimes with a lot of expectation on their shoulders, and that can kind of, make it a bit difficult. But I'd just like to actually enjoy going the game and watching us play some good football. And obviously, if we get top 5, that would be brilliant. But that's being very optimistic right now. But yeah, just some nice football would be good.
How about you, Beth?
I'd like to see a good cup run. I've always felt the past few years that that's something that Liverpool haven't really gone as hard on as maybe they could have done. Because it is so hard to win the WSL. I mean, Chelsea have done it 6 seasons in a row now. That their monopoly on and the stranglehold on the league is massive, and even Arsenal, who've got far more resources, who've spent far more money, Manchester City, Manchester United are struggling to get near them. So I always think a cup run is the sort of thing we saw it with Tottenham a couple of years back. They managed to get to the FA Cup final, and listen, they didn't go on to win it, but just the experience of getting to a final and for all of those fans to have a day out at Wembley. And
just the focus as well, it'd give everyone, the story you could tell in the city, and you've worked for publications in the city, and I'm sure it's frustrating sometimes that the women's team, the place that they get in comparison to the men's on the back pages and kind of things like that. And listen, you understand it, but if Liverpool got to a cup final, then there'd be such a huge story, and it'd get a lot of people's interest, and a lot of people, even if they didn't go, would watch it on the telly.
Yeah, it's something that I think you've got to give people something to get behind, and it's difficult. I always think it's a shame really in Liverpool, not just for Liverpool, for Everton as well. It's such a huge footballing city, and I feel like women's football is still yet to really take off. And sometimes when there's an international break and either Liverpool or Everton are playing at Goodison or at Anfield, I think it'd be great to have it full or even half full, 20,000, 25,000 fans there. And that has happened on occasion, but getting that consistently is really hard. And I think, for those clubs, not having a Lioness, it makes a big difference, I think. I think now, the Lionesses are such huge sort of brands in and of themselves. And I think not having that, it makes life difficult for both of those clubs. But if they were able to get to a cup final and, like you say, have that coverage, have that excitement, and just a nice little reward for the fans as well, because I think the fans that follow Liverpool Women home and away, they're some of the most passionate, very dedicated fans. They're great, and I just think it's been a tough sort of 5, 6, 7, 8 years really following the club, and I think it'd be nice to have that reward of getting to Wembley, and Liverpool have shown that they don't have any problems sort of beating anyone on the day. They beat Arsenal in the FA Cup last season, which was really impressive. They just couldn't go that next step. But in a one-off game, you'd always sort of back Liverpool to make life hard for whoever they're playing. So, yeah, a good cup run would be my hope for the season.
How about you, Phillipa?
I think there's a real opportunity actually in the League Cup this season. We've got a very favourable draw against sides that are in the division below. And I don't see any reason why we shouldn't try and target that. I know, in the past we've tended to try and give a run out to the second string almost, give players minutes, but for me, I would put the full first team out in those games this season and really go for it. I think, if you get past that group stage, you're into the quarter-final, and I think that's massive. I think Beth's right. I think getting to even to a semi-final, would be a really positive thing for the club, and something you can kind of hang your hat on. And especially with the League Cup, I'm talking about kind of feeling quite negative about the first half of the season, but if you can go on that cup run in the League Cup, that could be a real positive that you could, say even if we're struggling a little bit in the league, we've had that we've been able to get through and get to that quarter final. So And then apart from that, I would really like Lauren said, just see some positive football. I think last season it was, it was quite joyless, I would say.
Yeah.
It was really difficult to go, and I think if you're playing some positive football, I think that gets bums on seats as well, and it'll attract people to go and.
It's easy to sell as well, isn't it,
Exactly.
Phillipa? You want to tell people come and watch this great team, rather than go you should go and watch the women. You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
last year you could say come watch Olivia Smith, she's brilliant. So it wasn't just her. There's lots of good players, but I would love to be saying to people you want to get down and watch this women's team. They're brilliant, and it felt like it's been a while since we've been able to say that.
Yeah, it's been pretty much back against the wall, and relying on somebody like Olivia Smith to do something out of the blue, really. And I think I'd like to see us control games a little bit more this season, have our foot on the ball and a bit better passing. And I do think Gareth Taylor's a sort of manager that can get that out of players.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens the first few games. More importantly than anything, though, please can we win a derby at Anfield?
Well, that's coming up on part 5. There will be the interviews. I've got a list, so sort of bear with me. I probably had longer to think about the news because it was in my head. I want to do it, but I think for me with St Helens, Lauren, I like to see them turn that into a bit more of a fortress. And Prenton Park, I felt like we had that. I felt like it was quite a difficult place for other teams to come. It was obviously a football ground. It never completely felt like Liverpool's home, but I think we did do a good job of making it somewhere that, like I say, people sort of struggled a little bit. I think St Helens is a really nice place to watch sport. I completely understand why they moved. I like that it's ready. It's a nice place to take my lad, but it's a little bit too nice at the moment, I think. And I think for me, I'd like to see, I don't necessarily know how you do it, but to make it feel like we it's good here, it's our home here, and it's going to be sort of tough for the opposition.
Yeah, it's a lovely stadium to go to.
Yeah.
The whole match day experience of it is brilliant. But like you're saying, you want teams to be fearful when they're coming to our, and especially you want to be winning your home games. If anything, you want to win all your home games. So that needs to be the mentality as well that the players need to go into and go, right, this is our place, so we've got to make people work 10 times harder when they come here rather than us working 10 times harder to beat them, really. So yeah, I think definitely winning all your home games has got to be is on the list for them next season.
Yeah, I mean, you'd love to see it, wouldn't you, Phillipa? You go to all of those games and having a place to play where other teams don't want to come to it, and you go, we could take on anyone here, would be great.
Yeah, I think just make it into a bit of a fortress, really.
Yeah.
And like I say, I think part of that comes with having the ball more. When last season in particular for me, we conceded possession far too much for me, even against sides who you would have expected us to kind of dominate, really. So, I like St Helens Stadium. I think it's a really nice size stadium as well. I think if the game grows as we want it to, I think there's enough room there for us to be able to grow into a really, really good support almost. And I just want us to kind of. I think it's important that we get an early win there this season. I think last season we struggled early on, and it kind of then became like a monkey on the back sort of thing, and it took us a while to actually get to that point last season. So I think it's important we try and start there pretty strongly early on. And it's a bit of a shame, really, that the first game's at Anfield, and I totally understand why. It's the derby, and it's an international break for the men, so it kind of makes sense. But I think it would have been nice to kind of have that first game at St Helens and try and get that first win on the board there. But we'll just have to do it at Anfield.
Another thing, and this isn't necessarily one for next season, but the next few years, you talked before, Beth, about this idea of women's football not really sort of set in light. I'm surprised there's not more players from the city within the team, and listen, there's some great players from the city knocking about. They're just playing for Man City or whatever. Like every time Alex Greenwood's on the telly, it drives me bananas because I think she should be playing for Liverpool. And of course, she did play for Liverpool, but decided to move on. And there's others, you know, Nikita Paris has just gone to London City. You know, she's bounced around. She's from Toxteth, you know, and playing elsewhere. But we know there's talent in this city, both boys and girls, who are great at football. And like I said, this is maybe not one for next season, which is what my question was, but over the next few years, really, I'd love to see more Missy Bowes, because I think when you talk about a team getting an identity, I think that can be a big key part of it, really. And if you haven't necessarily got the money to go out and get superstars, which attract people, I think another thing would attract people would be a few, you know, people who people can recognise, or people can point to the kids and say, like, well, that could be you out there. And I think, if not necessarily for next season, but, you know, if this was the LFC Women's boardroom and I was, you know, invited to say what I think they should do, I think it would be really invest in that academy and really make sure that the talented players who are out there are nurtured and developed, because I think if you get 2 or 3 really good ones in the team, I think more people would come, I think more people would enjoy it, and yeah, they do loads of big tackles, and I enjoy that.
Yeah, I think that was, in a way, even more so than her ability, the losing the identity of Missy Bowes when she went to Aston Villa was massive, because I think because Liverpool, like you say, they didn't have a star player as such. Obviously Olivia Smith came in last season and became that, but they didn't have that marquee signing, they didn't have a lioness. I think Missy Bowes was the face of the team, was the player that, you know, if you'd say to people who only very casually watch the women's team or whatever, she's the face that they probably recognise. And again, I think it's important to have people like that, and like you say, have local people, because, you know, Scousers, they back their own, and I think it's always, you know, whether you're playing for the men's team or the women's team, you know, if people hear a Scouse accent, they want you to do well. So I think that's really important, and also because this region is such a hotbed of talent for football. You know, you look at the Lionesses, and so many of them came from either Merseyside or from, you know, the Northwest, you know, Manchester as well, and it's the Northwest is such a rich hotbed of talent for women's football in particular. It has been for years, and I think, you know, if you can bring in more players from the region and, like you say, develop them and bring them through. I mean, they've got great facilities now at Smallwood. It's you know, it's really, if you're a young player, a young girl who's looking at where to sign, that will be a massive decider, a massive factor in that for me. So I think the Smallwood thing is really important. But yeah, I think definitely having that, and also, you know, the amount of money that's now being spent in the women's game, it could end up saving Liverpool millions further down the line, because we've had the first £1 million player this summer. That's going to become the norm. In another 5-10 years, players might be going for £10 million. That's the way the game is going. So if you've got someone from your academy, or a couple of players from your academy who are good enough to play in the WSL, then you're saving yourself money as well.
It probably is a long-term thing, isn't it? And I know from having friends whose daughters who start playing, and you watch them, they're unbelievable, but they're like, you know, they're 10, 11, 12, do you know what I mean, years old, so it's going to take a while. But like Beth says, the talent that we know is in the city. It does feel like we shouldn't be too far away of seeing a little bit more of it in the first team for Liverpool, and I do think it'd really help.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know from growing up playing football here in the city, and the girls I played with and the teams I faced, you know, there was 100% players who could have gone professional there, but it just wasn't quite the right time for people to make that a career. So I think it's definitely something the club needs to think about now, in terms of nurturing our own talent and bringing them up from the academy, because it should always be an ambition for a club to have your own playing for you. So they definitely need to have that in the back of their minds, and kind of look to the academy and think, sure, what, we're going to put all of our efforts into this one player, because, like you said, we've had many of them who have played for us over the years, but have obviously gone on to other clubs because they've probably shown a bit more ambition than what Liverpool have when they were playing for us, the likes of Alex Greenwood, Nikita Paris, Missy Bowes. She obviously felt it was better for her to go elsewhere to get, you know, into that England squad and whatnot. So I think it should be an ambition for the club to definitely, you know, nurture our own and just kind of build from what we've got at the minute.
Yeah, it could give them the X factor, certainly. So we've got identity, attacking football, have a really nice time, make Anfield a fortress, a few Scousers. It's easy, isn't it? Sorted.
on.
Boxed.
We'll send that invoice.
Get us on the board.
Yeah, we'll send that invoice over. Okay, earlier today I went to Smallwood. Always a pleasure. Did a couple of interviews. Here they are. We're at Smallwood, which is always a pleasure. I'm delighted to be joined by new Liverpool manager Gareth Taylor. Gareth, welcome to Liverpool. Welcome to Liverpool Football Club. Here at Smallwood, an iconic place. It must be a nice place to come to work and get stuck in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an amazing place. I think I was fortunate enough to come here on a pre-season game, and I was actually asking questions around kind of, is this everything here for the women's? And it is. You know, the canteen staff are here for us. The ground staff are here for us every day, and I think it's just really, really a good opportunity to have a real solid platform to work from. Such a warm environment. The people here make you feel really welcome, and the setup, as you can see, is outstanding for us to operate as a team.
And it doesn't get much bigger than starting Merseyside derby at Anfield as well. How much are you looking forward to managing at Anfield with the live bird on your chest and, you know, in front of all those fans in a derby as well?
Yeah, it's a big one. It'd be a proud moment. I was there last season on the opposition side, but like you say, to be there as head coach for the women's team is going to be a real proud moment for myself. And yeah, I just want to give our supporters something to shout about. I think that's going to be really key. And you know, we're going to need them, and I think that goes hand in hand. I think we're excited about the season and where it can take us. We want to try and make improvements. We understand we're at the beginning of a project, and there could be a few kind of bumps in the road and a bit of turbulence, which is understandable. But I think everyone's on board and really aligned with what we want to try and achieve. We know that journey might take us a few seasons, but I think that's the real exciting part, is that we're at the beginning of it.
Obviously, everyone wants to start with a win, and that'd be fantastic on Sunday. But aside from that, what else are you hoping that the fans see on Sunday? Because obviously we'll be looking for clues on what one of your team looks like. So what are you hoping to see from the players that will make fans excited on Sunday?
I would say probably the bits we've been working on in the 3 weeks we've been here, which is not long. I think it's, you know, we would probably hope to see some signs of the work that we've been doing in the pre-season. And we're already starting to see that. I think they're a really good group of girls, really hungry to learn and improve and get better. And obviously one of the big briefs for me coming to the club was to bring an identity. And you know, that can take a little bit of a time to achieve. But hopefully we start to see some parts of that at the weekend. And like I say, it's a long journey, but we've already been positive with the things we've seen from the girls already.
And to good new players to come in. Your transfer window closes on Thursday. Some of us are still a bit tired from the men's one, but you've got till Thursday, and still trying to do one or two more if you can.
Yeah. There's some targets in there, and obviously you're in that latter part of the window is always a difficult moment to be in. Clubs are scrambling really late, not really keen on giving up players, which is understandable as well. So hopefully there's another couple that maybe could help and thicken the squad out just a bit, because I think that would just really, really help the playing group that we have at the moment.
Well, good luck on Sunday. Looking forward to seeing your team play, and obviously best of luck for the rest of the season.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
And now with new superstar signing, Kirsty McLeod. Kirsty, welcome to Liverpool Football Club. Have you found it so far?
Yeah, I'm loving it so far. I've loved the training, and the girls are all so nice. So yeah, it's been good so far.
And you went on a bit of a bonding trip last week to Cork. Was that nice to get to know your teammates a little bit better and enjoy each other's company?
Yeah, definitely. I think trips like that are so good, especially for new players coming in, to get to know everyone a wee bit better. And yeah, it was a good laugh, but we also got a lot of hard work done on the pitch.
New team for you, it's new for the manager as well. How quickly has he been able to get his ideas across to you, and have you got a clear sort of idea in your head about how he wants his teams to play?
Yeah, it's a new exciting style of play for us. Yeah, it took us a bit of time at the start, but we're really getting used to it now. And yeah, since he's came in, he's been great. His attention to detail as well as the assistant Chad, they've both been great. So yeah, hopefully we can show the fans what we're capable of on Sunday.
I mean, you mentioned Sunday, it's a big start, isn't it? Merseyside derby at Anfield, it's straight in there, but it's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so exciting. Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that, and yeah, to play at Anfield as well is amazing, so hopefully we can get a good crowd in.
And family coming?
Yeah, they're coming down for the game, so it'd be nice to have them in the stands as well.
And hopefully lots of Liverpool fans down there. How much of a difference does it make for you guys playing in front of these big crowds, and for anyone watching who's thinking about coming, like, you know, how much would you like to see, you know, those stands full and people getting behind the team in red?
Yeah, definitely, it's massive. I think the fans mean so much to us, so hopefully, you know, we want to put on a good performance for them that they want to come watch every week. So yeah, hopefully we can get as many there as possible.
And that's it, isn't it? We want to
Yeah, definitely we want to have an exciting style of play that fans they want to come watch, and people like to watch us. So hopefully we can do that on Sunday and continue that throughout the season.
Well, best of luck Sunday, best of luck this season, and welcome to Liverpool.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, we are back in the room and we are looking forward to Sunday's game. Like I said, tickets are still available. We'd love to see it full or as close to full in those stands at the Open as possible. So, yeah, if you fancy it, tickets are there. They're pretty cheap in terms of going to a game of football. It's a nice opportunity to go to Anfield if you haven't been. And hopefully we're seeing the start of the Gareth Taylor era, who leading us back to glory. It's not going to be too many new players, unfortunately, Beth, but there'll be, you know, plenty available from sort of last year. You could be interested to see formation-wise what the manager goes for, because, you know, there was the back three, which is Matt Beard, and then Amber sort of, you know, moved away from that a little bit. But I guess it's what the players are used to, and how to get the most out of those talented midfielders in particular that Phillipa talked about.
Yeah, but I do think that is the team's biggest strength, the midfield. So I think it is trying to harness their talents in the best way possible and ensuring that those players, the likes of Kerry Holland, if she does end up playing in midfield, or Sam Kerr or whatever, have the licence to get forward sometimes, because they don't maybe have those attacking options or the vast array of attacking options. I think it is important actually that Amber Whiteley stayed on the coaching staff, because, you know, I know how highly Liverpool rate her inside the club. That's why they gave her the opportunity to manage the team on an interim basis. And, you know, the players, I think, really, really like her as well, and having that continuity, because I think the way that Gareth Taylor wants this team to play will be far more like Amber Whiteley's Liverpool than Matt Beard's. Don't know necessarily in terms of formation, but I think just the more slightly front-footed, progressive-minded way of playing is more aligned to what Amber did when she was with the team at times. So yeah, I think that continuity will help a little bit, but I think the positive thing is that Liverpool have sort of broken the Anfield curse, obviously, by beating Manchester United last season. Obviously, they've still not beaten Everton, but I think, you know, having won a game at Anfield, that's a little bit of pressure off now. It was starting to get to the point where you thought this is just never going to happen. The one bad thing is that I wasn't there for that United game.
No, same.
I was there for, you know, pretty much every other Anfield defeat, and I'm going to be there on Sunday, so I'm not sure if that's a bad omen, but I think psychologically, if they could get a win over Everton there, that would, I mean, that'd be season done, wouldn't it? Really?
Yeah. Just starting the season with a win, Phillipa, would be massive, wouldn't it? And get one over on your rivals. And listen, I'm expecting Everton to be strong this season. You know, they've made a couple of good signings, but, you know, it is Liverpool, it is at home, it is at Anfield, and if they can get off to a really good start and win the game, like, then all of a sudden we're all feeling a lot more optimistic.
Yeah, I do feel as well Everton is sort of side that you can get in the heads a little bit. I mean, I went and watched them last weekend, and they have this habit of they'll play some really nice football, and they'll get to the edge of the box, and then they kind of like get a bit of a nosebleed and they come back again. So I kind of feel like if you can defend really well against them, you've got that opportunity then to really hurt them at the back. You know, they were 2-0 up at the weekend and they ended up losing 3-2, which is always nice, isn't it?
Especially when you're there going, oh dear.
Yeah, oops. But yeah, I mean, I think Everton have made some really astute signings actually this summer. I think they've done some really good business. But there's an opportunity there for me, and I just really want to see us go for it, and, you know, to really try and kind of set our stall out from the beginning. I think sometimes in those derby games at Anfield, we kind of wait until the game's settled a little bit, and then by then, you know, Everton have also settled, and it you know, it kind of just becomes, you know, a war of attrition, and ends up always being like the odd goal here or there that tends to win it. So I'd like us to take the game by the scruff of the neck and, you know, really use our strengths. Like I say, I feel our strengths at the moment is our midfield, and, you know, really get them playing as I know that they can, and, you know, passing the ball around, you know, and I think that we can hurt Everton.
For a lot of the players Anfield's quite familiar now, which I think should be a positive. You know, when we were only playing one game there this season, the problem was it'd feel, you know, quite big, and all the extra, the media and stuff like that. You thought sometimes maybe it was a couple that were a bit overawed, but then for others, it just didn't necessarily feel like a home game. Whereas, I think one of the benefits of playing there 3 times a season is that they are getting more used to it. One of the benefits of there not being loads more signings is that a lot of those players who are likely to play will have played there before. They've got the win there, like Beth said. So I just feel like having these extra games now, the fact that it's not a once-a-year thing takes the pressure off a little bit, both in terms of like, oh, it's this big event, but also, you know, there'll be some players who played there 4, 5, 6 times now, and hopefully it does feel like homes for them in that dressing room, and when they walk out into the pitch and they're able to do a quicker start, like Phillipa says, rather than spending the first 5-10 minutes trying to get the bearings.
Yeah, it definitely did feel like maybe, you know, similar to an away game the first couple of times we played there, especially for a lot of players. And, you know, it'd be daunting for anyone playing in a stadium to that capacity for the first time as well. But like you say, we've got some players there now who've done it a couple of times, and they know the feeling of winning there now as well at Anfield. So you'd like to think they'd want to replicate that feeling again on Sunday, and you know, and especially, you know, just make a good start to the season and a nice impact for those new players coming in as well. That, you know, they can turn around and say we beat Everton first game of the season at Anfield. That's what we want to achieve, you know, for the rest of the season. Now that's set the benchmark almost.
Yeah, and setting a benchmark for how you want to play as well, and that's what the manager want to see. You know, you guys won't have a chance yet to see my chat with Gareth, but he talks about, I said to him, what do you want to see in these early weeks? And he talked about their identity, and they said he's not had loads of time, so I don't think any of us should be expecting to see, oh, this is exactly what a Gareth Taylor team is. But you'd like to see some signs of it or some clues for it on Sunday, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. And like I say, I think that there were flashes of that in the draw with United in pre-season. You could see that he'd sort of implemented a little bit of his style already, and I think, you know, that will be massive, because a lot of the people go into Anfield this weekend, you know, it might be the first game, it might be the first game that they've taken the kids to, it might be their first real exposure to the women's team. So I think, going back to what everyone said earlier on about wanting to play fun football and nice football and entertaining football, you know, obviously it'd be great if you can win every single week, but failing that, you want to go to a game and feel like it's a good game, and it's not just sort of backs to the wall stuff. So I think if they can show a little bit of something about them and a little bit of excitement and identity, then I think that will be massive, and hopefully will then encourage, you know, people who maybe go into Anfield to watch them for the first time, to get down to St Helens as well and support them.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we all want, isn't it? You want a successful team, you want a team that people want to support and get behind, and that's whether it's St Helens or Anfield. But there will be times where on Sunday where the players might need the crowd a little bit as well, because it's new with the manager. You know, yeah, we talked about there might be a little bit of time where Liverpool have to suffer a little bit, and listen, we've got centre halves who quite enjoy that sort of thing, haven't we, and enjoy defending the box and getting the team out, and so they'll be up for the scrap. But I just hope that the fans identify those moments as well and get behind the team, because that'll certainly help. And you know, we are at home after all.
Yeah, exactly, and I think this is something that we kind of struggle with a little bit at Anfield. I think when we're at St Helens, because it's like the core crowd, as I would call it, you know, they've got the chance, they know what they're doing, they're all sat together kind of. And when we go to Anfield, we're all spread out a little bit, and it's harder to kind of like get that going. And what I'm hoping is, because they've done this 3-match thing like they had last season, that there's a lot of people, like you said, who are sat in the same seats, who are used to kind of how everybody behaves almost, you know, the chants and things like that, and you know, can really kind of get some sort of atmosphere going, because I think that's something that we struggled with a little bit at Anfield in the past. But yeah, that would definitely help the players, I think, to kind of get that result over the line. And you know, the game against United, for example, I think that was something that we did manage to do. You know, when the results started going positively, we went with it. And
rode the wave.
Yeah, you know, it is. You do kind of need the team to kind of take you on that wave in a sense, but you know, I'd like to hope that, you know, the fans, certainly in the first half hour, can kind of get that going themselves, and then hopefully that feeds on to the players, and then we can all go together onto this journey to a positive result.
You looking forward to it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
There's always a bit of like derby trepidation.
Yeah, I think
throw in a new season, throw in the Anfield thing. you know, it's not unusual to be a little bit jittery. But I'm looking forward to it as well.
I'm looking forward to, I am looking forward to it. I think it's a very fast start to the season. Obviously, Anfield straight away, Everton straight away, new manager, new players. There's a lot going on immediately. So, but it's that's part of the excitement as well, isn't it? That's what you want to see. You want exciting games. So hopefully it is one.
Yeah. Are we going to win? Come on, Beth.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going new manager, new era, start with a win. I'm going to go with a 1-0. I'm not going to say it's going to be a 5-goal thriller, as much as I wish it would be. I think it'll be a battling 1-0 to Liverpool. That's my prediction.
I said to Emma Sanders, Gemma Banner from a corner, headed in, everyone back. Forget everything we said about making good football, you know, just sort of, you know...
a scrappy tap-in at the back post will do, I don't care.
All of that first game.
I mean, I'd like a clean sheet. Get a clean sheet. The worst thing that you're coming away with is a draw, isn't it? But yeah, we're going to get that 1-0 win, aren't we? Definitely.
Yeah.
Full house for the 1-0?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Such confidence, of course. Listen, that's been a Midweek action with a little bit of a difference. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot to my panel for coming in, for all the people who made it brilliant during the show as well, and for the guys there for filming and recording. Do get yourself down on Sunday. Tickets are still available, and we'd love to see so many of you there. And who knows, maybe you could say you were there that first game where Gareth Taylor showed everyone what he was all about. The new players looked fantastic, and Liverpool went on the march. Up to Reds.